Welcome in, everybody, to another edition of Tier Tuesdays. Now, if you haven't caught up yet, we just have done a couple editions of this so far. This is our third edition. That means we are talking 2024 NFL Draft Class positions, and this time we are doing tight ends. We've already had DJ on for the quarterbacks. We had a bunch of running backs last week, and this week we're going to do tight ends. A little fun one, a little small one, nothing too crazy. So this will be a shorter version of it. If you guys don't know what we're doing, we're going through, and every week I'll be giving you a new tier two to talk about different positional rankings, values, if you will, into the draft class. Not giving you where their position is, where they fall in my top 50 or top 100, not normally at least. What I will tell you though is kind of how their skill set falls, and with tight ends, there's not a big group of them. Really, you're looking at 10 tight ends that are viable here in the draft. And of those 10 tight ends, I'm doing 6 guys today. That's all I'm covering. Beyond that, I just feel like some of the other guys just not really necessary to talk about. So without any further ado, we'll get right into it here. And don't be surprised, there's going to be a few different colors on here. We like to have a little fun with these. So as you can see here, we have, well, 6 guys in 6 tiers. Nothing too crazy. So I'm going to start right here at the top. It's your best bet. We have DJ's best bets every weekend. And, well, I think it's safe to say that this is everybody's best bet for the tight end position. That's Brock Bowers. If you guys don't know who he is, where have you been for the last couple of years here? Brock Bowers is one of the best tight ends to come out in recent memory that I can even consider. Yeah, absolutely an insane athlete. You saw what he was able to do at Georgia with and without a quarterback, whether he was hurt or not. What he was able to do last year while playing injured was kind of insane to watch. So expect a lot of teams to be nipping at the butt, if you will, to go get Brock Bowers in the first round. I do believe he falls somewhere under, between 15 and 20, most likely. Don't be surprised if it's the Colts that go out and get Brock Bowers, but somebody could surprise you in the top 10 as well. You just never know. But he is a once in a generation tight end, and I would not be surprised to see teams fighting for his draft pick, especially if he slides. Second up here, not a first round guy to me, but man, what an athlete. That's Jatavian Sanders out of Texas. Anybody watched him play this year? Look, there were 2 outstanding athletes at receiver in this team, and Sanders didn't look out of place as a tight end. Think about that for a second. When's the last time you saw a tight end run like a receiver and catch like a receiver and block? Well, okay, his blocking is a little bit subpar, but that's something that you can work with for sure in the NFL, especially with in the NFL, the tight end working more as a split end nowadays, not even as a full time blocker or blocking tight end. Sanders is going to make an impact. I like to kind of relate him there to Isaiah Likely out of Baltimore when he came out of Coastal Carolina. Very similar in their ability to stretch the field and get deep on especially linebackers if they end up covering them in the box. And cover twos, that seam route is going to be wide open to Sanders pretty much all day long. So yeah, definitely have Jatavian Sanders there. Look, I'm not going to say he's a first round guy, but he should be going in the top 64 players in this draft. That's for sure. Would be no surprise for that for me. Next up here, I'm going jack of all trades, a guy that just is good at everything, and it fits that he's out of Kansas State. We're talking about Ben Sinnott. I think it's Sinnott. It might be Sano. I'm sorry if I'm butchering his name. I'm sure you guys will let me know in the comments here. But look, he's an absolutely stud of an athlete, and he blocks. And that's with tight ends nowadays. If you can block, you can catch, you can do all of that. You're a threat. And now Brock Bowers obviously can do it. Just talked about Sanders. Maybe not the best blocker in the world. Athletically, though, a freak of nature. Well, Ben Sinnott is not a freak of nature. Let's not kid ourselves. But he is an athlete in his own right. And you get that guy in front of as a lead blocker or out in the space against a smaller corner, you can either run over him. He won't run by him necessarily, but he will run over him. And that goes for blocking or receiving. So I love what he's able to do. K-State players are known for their grittiness when they're coming out. I think of Darren Sproles a few years back. Pretty much any one of those Kansas State quarterbacks that have come out in the last, 20 years, if you will, they are all the same type of build. They just have a little bit of grindiness to them. Jordy Nelson, perfect example of one there as well. So yeah, I have Benson out here, jack of all trades, absolute. Would not be surprised to see him go in the first 3 rounds. Honestly, tell him the second round, beginning of the third round, Would not surprise me in the least here. But that's going to take us to the guy that I think is the one of the best. That's not really being ranked high here in a lot of tight end positionings. That's Cade Stover out of Ohio State. We've all seen this highlight catch, the one-handed catch, but he was making catches like that on a regular. His hands are second to none. He was the lead blocker in a lot of plays there for Travion Henderson and that run game. Uh, Look, you need a guy who can do it all, and Cade Stover does it all, but he does it all plus. So as far as like average goes, he's slightly above average in most categories, if not well above average. So I have Cade Stover here as well rounded because he really is. He's going to make a team very happy. I do believe he's going in the top 2 rounds. You know, maybe he might not be the top 2 round talent wise, but I do think there's some teams there, especially the back end of the second round, who might lose out on some players early on. They're just like, you know what? Let me go get a tight end because my team needs one. Maybe not a number one tight end as soon as he gets in the league, but within the first 3 years, it would not surprise me to see him as a number one on any team. Well, maybe not any team. There's a few teams. I don't think he's going to replace anybody, but give him an opportunity to go to, a Kansas City and sit behind Travis Kelcey or San Francisco and work with George Kittle. That would be the perfect situation for him. Or maybe LA takes it. The Chargers take a flyer on him, or even the Rams take a flyer on him with Higbee in front of him and maybe help him out. But the Chargers wouldn't surprise me if they're going after them as well. But I'll get to who I really think the Chargers are going to go after later in this draft once I get down to the bottom of this board. And the next guy up needs work. Still not a bad player by any means, but definitely needs some work. If you guys have watched any Penn State football in the last 2 years, you really know this guy is an absolute ball player. That's Theo Johnson. He's a great tight end, but there's some developmental needs, if you will, into his ability to play at the NFL level. Maybe not a plus pass catcher, plus route runner, or anything like that, but he is really an athlete that can intrigue some people with his size. It wouldn't surprise me if a few teams reach for him, just because that size is unteachable, and you can teach them all the rest of it. The intangibles are there; it's just a matter of teaching them the rest of it. And Theo Johnson could be a great piece in the NFL going forward, but it's going to start out a little rough for him, very likely. But I do think, as far as the top 6 guys go, he's definitely in that category. I don't think he falls out of the top 6 of the tight ends this year. I feel like he fits comfortably there. But maybe the low end of these 6 players, which will take us to our 6th player here. And that is just another tight end from Iowa. Now, he didn't start at Iowa. He ended up transferring here the last year. But that's Eric All, former player for the Michigan Wolverines. And as I said, a guy that Harbaugh might go after here in the draft. Look, he's just another Iowa tight end. But what do we know about Iowa tight ends? They play well in the NFL. George Kittle, maybe not the best tight end to ever come out of Iowa, but man, tell me he was not one of the best tight ends to be playing in the NFL. Top 5 guy, easy every year. You have Noah Fant, who might be the worst out of the recent memory, but that's not saying a whole lot. That's not too bad for anybody as well. TJ Hawkinson being maybe the biggest young player there, not including George Kittle, just because I don't count Kittle as a young guy anymore. There's a lot of talent. And the most recent one, obviously, rookie there for Detroit, and what he was able to do. You got to believe that Iowa just knows how to make tight ends. They know how to make linemen. It's just what they do. It's in their blood. It's in the corn. They feed these kids. So absolutely going to be impressive to watch what Eric All can do at the next level. Didn't test well, but we'll see what he can do at his pro day. It's a guy that I do think gets on some teams here later in the draft. I don't think he's going to be anybody's going to reach for him, but I think he's going to sit there for Harbaugh later in the draft. And whether Harbaugh has a pick or not, he's probably going to figure out a way to get his guy, former guy he recruited. I don't see why not. He gets that opportunity there. So, yeah, that's going to be these tight ends here. So, if you guys miss any of that, Brock Bowers, best bet. The What an Athlete at Jatavian Sanders. 2 guys that I do believe are going in the first 2 rounds. Brock Bowers within the first 20 picks should be. Next up, Jack of all trades, a guy who's just going to do it all for you, which is going to lead us to the well-rounded guy, and that's Cade Stover. So, Jack of all trades, Ben Zano from Kansas State. The well-rounded Cade Stover from Ohio State. 2 guys that I think any NFL team will be happy with. Should maybe don't start their first year, but within the first 5 years, I see them as starters at the position. Needs work. Theo Johnson out of Penn State, just a guy that needs some talent to be developed there. He has the natural talent. He just needs the game talent, if you will, the learned talent, and that's all part of the NFL process here. He's a guy that you could sit there as a tight end 2-3 and just let him sit and learn and have a good time. Then when he gets really fully developed, but his size is just unteachable. There's got to be a way to fit him into a team. And the last one, just another tight end here, and that's Eric Hall from Iowa. So another Iowa tight end yet again in the draft. Don't be surprised if he has a pretty good first couple years in the league as well, because that's just what they do. Anyways, let me know if I left out any of the tight ends. Be sure to stay tuned for more next week, as I'll be dabbling in a little bit of offensive linemen. And if you don't believe what I say about offensive linemen, I'm just going to show you the credentials in my waistline, because let me tell you, offensive linemen, we all do one thing well, and that's we know what food is, and we know how to play offensive line. But anyways, guys, stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for our brand new episode every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern time on our YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and everywhere you can find us, Twitter, you name it, Twitch. So be sure to check that out. And also, if you haven't checked out Mondays, Mock Draft Mondays with DJ, you're missing out. Dude was in his bag yesterday, seeing what he could do. So be sure to stay tuned for that. And next week, we may just have a surprise for you with one of our shows. So be sure to stay tuned for that as well. As always, find us on Twitter and LinkedIn, or Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at HighLowSports, at high_low_sports on Twitter, and on YouTube at HighLowSports. So stay tuned for that, guys. As always, we appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you guys again next time.